In the ancient world, war usually meant chaos. Large but poorly organized armies, soldiers acting on impulse, disease, panic, confusion. Many different factors could turn a battlefield into something completely uncontrollable. But the Roman army was different for its time. If you found yourself fighting Roman legionaries, you weren't just facing men with weapons. You were facing order, discipline, and a level of calm that was deeply unsettling. One of the clearest symbols of that order was impossible to miss: the large curved shields that almost completely covered a Roman soldier's body. At first glance, these shields looked simple, almost primitive. But when used correctly, they became something far more dangerous than they appeared. So why did Rome rely on such large shields? Were they only meant to protect soldiers? Or was there something deeper behind them, a way of thinking that helped Rome dominate battlefields for centuries? The shield carried by Roman legionaries was called the Scutum. On paper, it didn't look extraordinary, but in reality, it was one of the most effective defensive tools of the ancient world. The Scutum was roughly 1.20 meters tall, slightly curved rather than flat, constructed by pressing multiple layers of wood together, covered in leather, and reinforced with a metal boss at its center. That curved shape was no accident. A flat shield transfers the full force of a blow directly into the soldier's arm. The Scutum didn't. Its curve spread the impact outward. That single design choice meant everything. It allowed a Roman soldier to tire less, to stay in combat longer, and most importantly, to remain standing without breaking formation. For Rome, war wasn't something to be decided in a few dramatic moments. It was an endurance test, sometimes lasting hours. This brings us to the core difference between Rome and most ancient armies. Rome didn't win wars through individual heroics. It won through coordination. For a Roman soldier, the priority was never survival alone, personal glory, or standing out. The priority was simple: hold the line. That is why the Scutum was so large. Soldiers locked their shields together, shoulder to shoulder without gaps, each man becoming part of a single structure. Because of this, the Roman line rarely shattered. Even when pushed back, it didn't collapse. Enemies learned this the hard way. Defeating a single Roman soldier was possible. Breaking the Roman formation, however, almost never was. Nothing in the Roman army existed in isolation. The size of the Scutum was directly connected to another iconic weapon: the Gladius. The Gladius was short, narrow, and designed for stabbing rather than wide, swinging cuts. Roman soldiers didn't fight with dramatic movements. They conserved energy. From behind the safety of the shield, they delivered short, precise, lethal strikes. Most attacks were aimed at the lower abdomen, the groin, or gaps in the chest and ribs. There was nothing flashy about it, but it was brutally effective. The large shield gave the soldier time to stay calm, time to observe, time to strike only when it mattered. Perhaps the most famous use of Roman shields was the Testudo formation. This formation perfectly captures how Rome thought about war. During a Testudo, the front ranks held their shields forward, those behind raised theirs overhead, and soldiers on the sides sealed every opening. What emerged wasn't just a formation, it was a moving, armored mass, almost like a tank advancing across the battlefield. Arrows, stones, spears. All of them lost their effectiveness. But the true strength of the Testudo wasn't physical, it was psychological. Roman soldiers didn't run, they didn't shout, they didn't panic. They advanced slowly. And for the enemy, that sight was exhausting, because what stood before them wasn't fear, it was patience. Roman shields didn't just protect bodies, they targeted the enemy's mind. Imagine seeing it. Hundreds of soldiers, identical shields, the same color, moving forward as a single organism. For disorganized tribal forces or armies built around individual bravery, this was terrifying. The Roman army didn't intimidate through noise, it intimidated through silence. Many battles were already lost long before the first swords ever clashed. So an important question remains. If this system was so effective, why didn't everyone fight like Rome? Because this system came at a cost. It required extreme discipline, long, expensive training, and absolute commitment. Roman soldiers were paid professionals. They trained for years, and desertion was punishable by death. In other words, these large shields only worked because they were supported by the Roman state itself. What made Rome powerful wasn't greater courage, it wasn't superior strength, and it certainly wasn't numbers alone. Rome chose order over chaos, patience over haste, and the system over the individual. The Scutum was the physical expression of that mindset. The large shields of the Roman legions were never just defensive tools. They were symbols of discipline, endurance, and collective power. And perhaps that is why Rome endured for centuries. Because Rome didn't simply learn how to fight, it learned how to fight within order.